pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Bateman?
Here.
Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Rory?
Here.
Vice Mayor Phelps? Mr. Ping?
Here.
We have a motion to excuse.
Move to excuse Vice Mayor Phelps.
Second. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Rory?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have our Director of Finance, Mark Medler, Assistant City Manager, Corey Wright, Clerk of Council, Misty Clark, City Manager, Dave Kennedy, City Solicitor, Joe Braun, Chief of Police, Michael Gabrielson, former council members, Todd Osborne and Pat Mays. Welcome, everyone. First up is review and approval of the minutes for the June 27th, 2023 meeting. Changes to this meeting with minutes.
Motion to approve is written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Rory?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next is review and approval of the minutes from the July 11th, 2023 meeting. Are there any additions, changes to that?
Move to approve as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
I will be abstaining because I was not present at that meeting. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Rory?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Abstain.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next, we have a second reading of an ordinance. Can you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance modifying the pay range for customer service specialist and specialist positions and repealing ordinance 2023-16.
This was discussed, I presume, at the last meeting. Is there any further comment or questions on this ordinance? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Rory?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
75 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. So we have kind of the phase two of sort of updating our plans and things for positioning ourselves for federal funding. If you recall, we recently adopted the Thoroughfare Plan. The other component of that is a Title VI implementation plan. So without belaboring the point too much with OKI, OKI is a very competitive scoring process. We're obviously looking to compete for federal and state transportation dollars. The Loveland Road Corridor is a huge project, and the city may undertake additional projects in the future, potentially out of the West Loveland Bridge Study recommendation and other things. So with that, access to federal funding is critical. In looking at OKI scoring process, they have an environmental justice component. So there is actually a committee. They review the applications and rank them based on environmental justice, impacts, compliance with Title VI. And so what we did was we engaged Choice One to research those various across the spectrum, from the most intense to a one-page statement, and then worked with Mr. Braun to develop a plan that was specific to the city's practices and needs, and that would provide us with an opportunity to check the box and also have recognition of the city's existing policies in place. So we did that work over the last several months, have brought that forward, and really it just basically recognizes a lot of the existing things that the city says that we're already doing. You know, we have a English limited English proficiency assistance program through the police department. They already provide that. The city does not discriminate. We obviously adhere to all state and federal laws in that regard. And so really we're just codifying that, not really codifying it, but putting it in a plan and a document, consolidating that into one place, and labeling it as such so that we can be more competitive for transportation funding. So
All right.
that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Go ahead and read the resolution.
Resolution adopting the Title VI implementation plan for the city of Loveland, Ohio.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Rory?
Yes.
Resolution 76 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Next up, I have a resolution that would award a bid for construction of the East Loveland Avenue bridge replacement project the JTM Smith Construction. This would award the bid for $1,988,681 and would further authorize city manager to execute the contract and authorize expenditures up to $2,167,000 consistent with the budget allocation for the project. So a lot of content here, and Cindy did a really great job summarizing the project. But as you know, this is a multi-jurisdictional effort. It really involves replacement of the bridge, replacement of deficient stormwater, actually upgrading deficient stormwater system, replacement of about 1,300 feet of sanitary sewer line, sidewalks, pavement restoration, the whole 9 yards through that. And really, the project wouldn't be possible without Cindy's hard work in sort of negotiating with these various agencies, Claremont County, MSD, and all of that to bring those different funding sources to be more competitive for OPWC funding. And as you know, we were awarded that. Council authorized the design for the sewer. We're working on that. We worked on that, got that all ready. It all folded in perfectly. And we had 8 bidders for the project. JTM Smith was the lowest and best, or lowest responsive and most responsible bidder. And that notably, they were the only one that came in under the estimate. So with that, they have a proven track record with the city. They completed the Broadway Street stabilization and Miami View Drive culvert replacement project, and also has completed multiple bridge projects such as Nordyke Road in Claremont County, Hamilton County's Rapid Run Road Bridge, and Sims Township's Blong Road Bridge. And so the recommendation is to approve the legislation as presented, award the bid in the amount of $1,988,681 to JTM Smith Construction as the lowest responsive and most responsible bidder, and then further authorize the city manager to execute the contract and expenditures up to the budgeted amount of $2,167,000.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bateman?
A couple of things. First, just want to remind the council and staff that I plan to abstain on this as a result of it being in close proximity to my residence. And I also want to thank Councilman Blair for a few months ago getting clarity on the difference between abstaining and recusing oneself. And so therefore, because I'm abstaining, I do want to make some comments around this. And one, just that I'm glad to see the winning company is someone that has experience with us in recent past. And those projects specifically have been, big projects that have made, significant improvements to, crumbling infrastructure. So it fits this project specifically as well. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, and I did have some conversations with Mr. Kennedy about this, but just in the neighborhood of East Loveland, there's been some correspondence that's gone out in relation to this project from one of the parties regarding the sewer. And I know the city has done extensive efforts in its newsletter and getting the word out about upcoming projects. But I think with something like this and a bridge potentially being out and the significant impact that this particular one will have on people's day-to-day lives, just a little extra effort in terms of direct communication to the residents affected, I think would be wise now that we're starting to see, this big project getting closer and closer. So that's all from me.
We're going to talk to Cindy and Krista. When Cindy gets back from vacation, we were going to actually good old-fashioned mailer to the residents in that area, just sort of pointing out the highlights, some of the things that they need to know. Cindy just left, so we'll get on it next week. It's really easy for us. We have the utility billing, so we can do labels. It's real simple for us.
All right. Mr. Blair?
Just a general question. These bids are like all over the lot, if you'll pardon the pun. And I'm just curious, for example, does John Jurgensen just not want the business?
It's very common to see bids,
crazy bids,
all over the place. And it really depends on a number of factors. How bad do they want the job? Number two, it's about mobilization. And they may have too much work. A lot of companies may have too much work, but they still feel compelled to bid on something. And so generally they'll bid something up sometimes, or there may be different sources for different materials.
Gotcha.
That all those things can drive.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Ori.
Just quick question, Mr. Wright. The timing on this, do we have any idea yet?
So we'll award the bid, and then obviously we've sort of had some pre-bid meetings with Claremont County. I mean, we know that we have to wait for Claremont County to finish the what is the name of
O'Bannon.
the O'Bannon Bridge? That's right, the one further down before they can close this one because they can't put people on an island. So they projected that toward the end of this year, I think is what they were saying. I believe was the end of this year. So, but that doesn't mean we can't do work in the pavement, sewer work, underground work, things like that. So I would imagine that, now that we have a contractor, we'll schedule a pre-construction meeting. We'll get all the parties in the room, similar to what we did with the turn lane, similar to what we did with the sidewalk project, and we'll get a better feel for when, the bulk of that will occur. I think the biggest thing is going to be mobilization. Obviously, they have to get to the site and they have to order materials, stormwater pipes and sewer pipes and all that. So there'll be a little bit of lag time on that.
So you're saying that in a 23 project versus a 24?
So they'll probably start some underground this year, this year.
The actual shutdown of the bridge.
No, it wouldn't.
But then the bridge next year.
Yeah, it can't happen until Claremont County. And if they tell you December, that's probably optimistic.
Right.
So you're probably looking at late December, January. I mean, not to be the skeptic, but things happen. So
it's next year.
Yeah, you'll see the bulk of the bridge shutdown will likely be next year.
Okay.
Mr. Hart.
As connectivity to the downtown as one of our council goals, can you kind of speak to? I see some language in here about the new ADA compliant sidewalks and the new nature preserve. Can you kind of speak to and highlight a little bit about what's coming?
So the project includes sidewalks, and as you know, the area right now it's sort of deficient in that area, and so that will be a benefit. ADA compliant, has to meet minimum width. There'll be probably, I'm guessing, it's a type 6 combined curb and walk
with the truncated domes.
Yeah, and you'll have to Mr. Kennedy's point, the truncated domes for the crosswalks and things like that. And so the other component is, as you mentioned, the stairs with the nature preserve. So that project will remove the stairs and then they'll put a mulched ramp in, which meets that ADA grade, which is beneficial for that. So yeah, you'll have brand new, improved sidewalk. It'll look like a beautiful new city street, 2-lane sidewalks in that, have a nice access into the nature preserve. So I think that's going to be an incredible benefit for those residential units down there.
Agree.
And if I can just add one thing, since we're deep into the budget already this year, there is a phase 2 and a phase 3 that gets us all the way up to the Claremont County Park and potentially the Cardinal Conservancy if they get funded. So, but we're not just adding sidewalks. We're fixing the storm drain as we work our way up. So it is a multi-phase that ties the whole city into connectivity. There's phases that are going to work its way all the way up to that park. The Claremont County Park entrance is likely going to be much more towards the O'Bannon side of the property.
Great. Thank you very much. Both of you.
Mr. Ori.
Just one more question. Is there any straightening of that road going to be? Is that?
So you'll have a little bit of realignment there around the bridge itself,
right.
Just with kind of the offset of that, because I know that sort of jogs sort of sharply if you're going out of town, sort of to your left or whatever. So they're going to slightly realign that. I'm not aware of any major, what I would say major realignment of the road. So.
My question was more is, since they're adding the sidewalks, they're going to go towards the river or the creek.
Yeah, you'll have some impact in that. I imagine that from plans that I've seen that bridge gets realigned slightly so that it's less of a harsh, you're not doing this. It's more of a gradual curve. That's generally what Claremont County's done when I've seen them do that in other places. Okay. And then you have that sidewalk. Obviously, you have to make sure that can fit in there. I think we're wrapping up easements now. I think
we have one left.
One left. Yep. So everybody's
been really great,
supportive.
Thank you.
All right. Any further comment or questions? All right. Go ahead and read the resolution, please.
Resolution awarding the bid to complete the East Loveland Avenue Bridge Replacement Project to JTM Smith Construction, Inc.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes. I'm sorry, abstain. I forgot.
Mr. Blair?
You're going to recuse your.
I'll recuse my statement. and
Yes.
Abstain from that legislation.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Resolution 77 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So Duke has finished Duke has finished their gas main work up on Oakland Road / State Route 48 down to Loveland, Miamiville Road, and they are only responsible for repaving basically one lane, what they would call the disturbed area of the project, which was largely from west of the entry into White Pillars all the way down to the Loveland Miamiville Road, and then slightly south 100 feet. So what we're trying to do, they reached out to the city and said, maybe this would be a good opportunity for you guys to jump in and do the other lane, of which it works out perfectly for the city. For a couple of reasons. A, that road was scheduled to be repaved 3 years from now, rather than have half of a road on one schedule and another half. That's one of the advantages to doing it. Obviously, these residents have been disturbed, have dealt with this project for quite a while. That also eliminates for them having to see it get paved later. And then the other thing is it fits in with our Loveland Miamiville sidewalk project that's underway, because there's a stormwater cut right across there, and the timing should be perfect where that will be complete and the paving will be done in conjunction with that. So as quick as that could get buttoned up, rather than being that hole that always has to be tapped off. So, and we benefit financially because Duke's paying the mobilization. Corey had talked about the mobilization, and Duke is paying for the traffic control. And so we're paying for our one half of the road, 49% of the striping, and we're done. That road is covered for a long time. So we started the road program. Council, as you know, you budgeted 1.2. We had 7,163 budget, 7,163. So we started at 1,207,163. The road program is complete. It's at 1,067,369. That gives us a balance of 139,794. Queen City's the city share of this paving would be 66,545, which leaves us a balance of 42,249. We're going to do some striping. We're looking to upgrade our ADA striping in certain parts of the city, and so on and so forth. Try to consolidate them so we still have a balance. Any that's left over carries into next year. We are using their contractor A for continuity, and B because his quantities are identical to what our road program were. So J.K. Muir's already finished and moved out of town. So with that, we're just asking that city award a contract to Queen City Blacktop for the pavement of the roadway, repaving of a portion of State Route 48. And I will speak on behalf of me and Corey. Chad Schaefer with Duke Energy is absolutely fantastic. That was a lot of upset. It was just with the school between Chad and Chad was really he really helped us out a lot. So I really want to give him kudos. You saw Chad was here with Duke, so it was a good program. So this is the best way to say to the residents, we're all finished here. We're out of your hair. So,
Mr. Blair?
Dave, just to be clear, Queen City Blacktop is going to pave the other side after paving what they did when they dug the holes?
Yeah, they got a contract with Duke to pave one side of the road. They said to the city, which is what Cindy, hey, you want to join in? We'll do it both sides now.
The paving job they did on the side of the road they paved is abysmal.
They haven't done it yet.
Well, what's there now?
That's just temp patches.
Thank God.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
This is.
Just what this is. It'll be all buttoned up.
All right.
Anyone else? All right, read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Queen City Blacktop Company for repaving a portion of State Route 48.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart? Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Resolution 78 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I'll try to go fast on this, but so obviously everyone knows that the bike trail crossing on West Loveland is a long-standing issue. City has thrown multiple projects at trying to make improvements, receive some grant money for them, overhead signage, the RRFB, the pedestrian crossing, expanding, accentuating the stop signs. ODNR put some advanced markings on it, and I think while everyone sort of admits that they didn't have a whole lot of impact on the crossing, you could argue that they have had an impact on public safety. Back in early January, January 2022, your first and second meeting in January 2022, this topic was discussed both through a staff memo and through a presentation from Ed Williams with TEC Engineers. If you recall, we said at that point in time the city was reaching out for funding for the construction element of the project. If it was funded, it would go into construction in 2024. If it was funded, the city would do all the engineering in 2023. That's been going on pretty much most of the summer. You all approved that in April of this year. You approved the engineering construction to go forward. So where we're at now is we haven't finalized the design, but in the most basic concept, we will be turning that intersection that crossing into an intersection, a signalized intersection on West Loveland that speaks to the other traffic signals on West Loveland. This doesn't really care about what's going on at 5 Points, and we'll pick the right timing for the pedestrian crossings with an actual red, yellow, and green. Conversely, with that, it also needs to signalize railroad and the fleet feet. I want to say that the area on coming out the southbound traffic on railroad onto West Loveland, there's reason to believe that at some point in time that ingress and egress could be altered based upon improvements to Harrison, a new parking garage, that could be altered. And it was actually recommended to me by a city council member to ask to see if this is even an option. Why is that a good option? Because it could make the crossing project even more beneficial. It would significantly reduce the cost of the project. And all in all, it just fits in well. So we are examining that. This project wouldn't go to bid until July of next year. So it was timely to begin that. So it makes a lot of sense. But that being said, all I'm bringing to you right now is just our standard public let agreement with ODOT. What does it basically mean? It means the city isn't a certified ODOT let, so we really can't bid it. ODOT has to run the project. This is simply stating who's responsible for what, who's paying for what, and so on and so forth. There will be after the program is bid, the project is bid, we'll come back and say, okay, the project's bid. The city has to put this much in escrow. How does it work out financially? So they have accentuated the cost estimates to $430,000. It was more at around $330,000, but they're just preparing for what could happen. If we do end up making modifications to railroad, it will decrease. The grant that the city received through TEC is for 80% of the cost, up to $281,000. The city is responsible for the balance of the project. We don't really know what that is until the project goes out to bid, until we finalized where we're at. So this is sort of a first step process. This simply says to ODOT, yeah, we want to move forward with the project. We understand our role, and we will ultimately commit to putting our share of the project in on towards this project. So it's a long road, and this is the first step. And we just thought we'd go ahead and bring it to council and get it wrapped up. I tried to give you past information as attachments rather than just keep talking about, because I think you all know what we're talking about doing. But the most basic turn is, when is the optimum time for pedestrian crossings on the bike trail? When Carl Brown basically has a green, correct? That is when. Well, with the city's investment in our smart traffic signals, we have the ability for them to talk to each other. Is it a perfect world? No. Is it going to require a police presence in the beginning to get people to realize it? Are there a certain level of bikers who simply are just going to do what they want to do and go through? but yes, but will it work much like we see when we have events and we use basically crossing guards? I think it will have that kind of impact. And I really do think it will have that kind of impact. It's not going to stop every piece of traffic, but this is potentially one of the most. If you are in a car, you don't have to stop. You will have a vivid green light saying go through. And that is one of the issues. You see people who just naturally want to stop. They want to look both ways. I appreciate their safety. So this is what this is hoping to do. It is. We feel that this will have the most. This is the best case scenario. So, I'm sorry. That's all. I didn't want to go on and on.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Mr. Ori?
Try to go.
Dave, on whatever page, let's say page 33 of the packet here, it shows signals, no walk, which it shows a red person standing there and a green person. Are there going to be no walk signs, like at a regular traffic light?
Yeah, it'll match something in figure 2. I just gave you sort of what they look like. Do you want it to be people? Do you want it to be bikes? But they will have, and hopefully dual. They'll be dual, and they'll be antique style, black style. But we're hoping they'll be dual because we noticed people didn't use the buttons until we put them on both poles. But we would hope so. They will have a physical thing. If you're curious, Madeira has something similar to this. Cindy and I went on a little road trip. They have something similar to this. I'm not very good with roads. Corey would know, but the particular intersection.
I spent quite a bit of time the last couple of weekends sitting down at the chairs, and 95% of the cars stop before they cross the cross because they think it's a crosswalk, which it is, but it's not.
Right.
You're not supposed to treat it that way.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great idea. So,
Mr. Bateman?
I agree with that idea, with the sentiment that this is a great idea. I really like what you said, Mr. Kennedy, about how the changes up to this point that have been made had an impact on public safety, and I agree with that. I think that what we have done in the last several years, sort of incrementally improving, making small steps. You just mentioned adding the button to the opposing pole. I mean, you're starting to see, I think, some behavioral changes from traffic patterns a little bit. I think as a cyclist, I see people, pedestrians in particular, using the buttons and being more cautious at approaching that particular bike trail crossing. So I think that this will, as you said, be the one thing that's really going to push it over the edge to the point where you'll see wholesale improvements in traffic patterns as you move through those things. But I just want to sort of finish my statement with, I do think that public safety, as it always is, I'm sure, but it does need to be really thoughtfully considered through this process going forward, because I think that it is still a dangerous intersection now on certain days, and not necessarily the peak heavy traffic periods, but I think vehicles going at high speed, people making lane changes aggressively as they get in and out of the bottleneck or try to choose the route they need to take. So as you mentioned, the potential for different ingress and egress at railroad and some interesting dynamics there. I think that could also fall along the lines of making that a safer intersection.
And you have to remember that the city made these improvements in conjunction with the pedestrian traffic expanding exponentially. At the same time, the southern part of the downtown business district expanded. There was really no hops and berries, tonneaus, and that has brought even more traffic, more crossings, more everything. Used to be if you parked at Fleet Feet, you were always going this way. You're not. So the little thing that we did and the bridge and the gateway that was there, it works because that part of the business district has really seen a transformation. I mean, really, if you think about it, and that's all happened at the time. So yeah, okay, it didn't really work, but actually you could say that you're twofold times the number of people that are using that crossing, and we've been basically been safe. So
Any other comment?
Just to strike on something that you mentioned there, the enforcement aspect. I know when we first talked about this, I brought this up, and it was when Chief Ray was here. So since Chief Gabrielson is here now, I'll bring it up again. I think that based on past history, there definitely needs to be an enforcement component of this early on. Maybe not rubber hoses and clubs, but something pretty close to that. Because it's just that's the tendency of the traffic that we have on there right now. And so the worst thing we could have happen is put all this in and then have disrespect of the signalization so that we have people stopping at green lights to let people walk across the road. So there needs to be something, I think, with a physical presence of, at high traffic times with someone just to stand there and say, hey guys, light's red, you need to wait. To give a little bit of importance to it and do that traffic training, so to speak, to get people familiar with it. It won't take that long. I don't think it's we're talking about months. We're talking about weeks maybe. But I think that's going to be an important component to making this successful in the end, because otherwise the nature of that crossing is such that it just looks a lot like traffic should stop. I mean, the hump there and the pavement markings and things give that impression. And so it needs to be crystal clear that cars that have a green light are going to drive through there. Otherwise, we'll have a biker get struck, right away. So for everyone's safety and for the success of the thing, I think that's a critical piece we don't want to miss. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hart.
Actually, as Mr. Ping was speaking, that brought up kind of an interesting point. There is a little bit of a speed hump there. Is there any thought to, and this is just off the cuff, so if you don't have an answer for this, there's no problem with that, obviously. Is there any thought to working to changing that intersection at all, the way it's marked, paved, built? Is there keeping the speed hump there with?
we have a great traffic engineer, because when I was going over everything we've done, I miswrote in here because where we removed the pavers on Broadway, that allowed us to do much better striping, what they call the piano keys. So it probably could potentially lend itself to say it would be best if we remove the pavers, try to level that out, and put in very vivid markings that will help both the pedestrians and the traffic. So it's a great comment. Corey and I will reach out to Ed tomorrow, but right now we haven't even discussed it.
Yeah, completely off the cuff. So.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Go ahead and read the resolution.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an LPA ODOT project agreement for the West Loveland Bike Trail signalization project.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Resolution 79 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
I originally wrote this memo not in the emergency format, but after speaking with Chief Gabrielson, we decided to present it as a emergency. This is simply a modification to the schedule of municipal positions and repealing what you just passed as a first reading, which was 75 earlier tonight. So it's very simple. When we took Krista's position, human resource marketing communications coordinator, and made it a full-time position, that left us with one part-time position that was still classified, meaning it has to go through the civil service testing process. It is difficult with a part-time position to run it through the civil service testing process. It's just more detailed. These aren't as desirable positions. They don't have as obviously many as ours, the lack of benefits, so on and so forth. This position actually will be vacant come tomorrow. And that got us starting about the process. And it is not so much the timing. I realize I'm asking for this via an emergency. It is also to try to get the best pool of candidates. The most typical candidate for a property room manager is someone who's done it at a larger department or is a retired police officer, so on and so forth. We don't know that we're likely to get that as many candidates. So when it sit and go through the testing process, another thing about the civil service process, we could likely end up with our typical certified list of 10 candidates. then conduct a background check and find out that half of them aren't even eligible to go work at the police department. So I think we would just like to modify this schedule to represent the property room manager remains part-time, remains in the same salary range, but is now unclassified.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right. Read the ordinance, please.
Ordinance amending the classification for the property room manager position, repealing ordinance 2023-75 and declaring an emergency.
Any comment on the ordinance? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ordinance 80 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mrs. Clark.
The city hires the Walter Drain Company to incorporate adopted legislation into our code of ordinances on an annual basis. They also add provisions to the code that conform with current state laws as required by the Ohio Constitution, such as traffic and general offense provisions. This ordinance will approve replacement pages to the codified ordinances and will update the online version of the code. It was drafted as an emergency because all of the ordinances and laws are already in effect, and it will allow the code to be updated regularly.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Read the ordinance, please.
Ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Loveland codified ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey? Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ordinance 81 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Medler.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Loveland currently has 6 lighting districts that the city pays energy bills for and then assesses the amount to taxes for each parcel within those districts. Of the 6 districts, the largest increase this year is $1.58. So, this ordinance must be effective and sent to Claremont and Warren County Auditor's Office by the second Monday in September. We have sufficient time to pass this as a regular ordinance. And again, this is something that we pass every year.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right. So these are all first readings. So go ahead and start with the first one.
Ordinance assessing lighting, maintenance, and operation costs associated with the Brandywine on the Little Miami subdivision located in Warren County, Ohio.
You can just keep them on down.
Ordinance assessing lighting, maintenance, and operation costs associated with the Hermitage Point subdivision located in Warren County, Ohio. Ordinance assessing lighting, maintenance, and operation costs associated with the Sanctuary at Miami Trails subdivision located in Claremont County, Ohio. Ordinance assessing lighting, maintenance, and operation costs associated with the White Pillars Phase 1 subdivision located in Claremont County, Ohio. Ordinance assessing lighting, maintenance, and operation costs associated with the White Pillars Phase 2B subdivision in Claremont County, Ohio. And ordinance assessing lighting, maintenance, and operation costs associated with the White Pillars Phase 3 subdivision located in Claremont County, Ohio.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Kennedy.
I'll go quicker than I was originally planning. But sorry. I don't mean to be so wordy. So I just wanted to update everybody on just sort of, I felt we owed it to everyone just to show you real quickly, and I will do it quickly, just sort of how the parking lot was going to play out. We've finalized the layout, the design, and so on and so forth. So this is our standard entryway. We have 151 parking spaces in the new lot. This we did our best to try to capitalize on as many spaces as possible, and we actually to do this we pushed it out into First Street into the First Street right away as much as can be. We do not foresee that at any point in time becoming a 2-lane street. That's definitely not something that those residents wanted to do. So I'll just go through it real quick. This will have 2 egress and 1 ingress. So coming out, you'll be able to take a left or a right, sort of Claremont County or Warren County. We moved the entryway as far up as possible. You couldn't go any farther because this car wouldn't be able to back out. The thought was there is we want to give that the left traffic as much distance from the parking the railroad crossing as possible. The sort of a neat feature, not really an expensive part of it, is there'll be a pedestrian passageway that'll go all the way through into from the 48, which we see as one of the primary benefits to this. The project also will consolidate the dumpsters. This is big push that Corey's had for the whole time. What does it do? Well, part of it is you can see that it helps us with our modification to the parking around City Hall. It cleans it up. It makes it an easy Duke entry, so all the dumpsters will be in one nice, neat location. Harrison Avenue extended through to First Street into the new parking lot. So you sort of see the reason why I wanted to show you this. You sort of see how Harrison comes into play with all this, how the widening of Harrison comes in, how it creates a right into the City Hall traffic or a straight. How it all plays out perfectly, and we will actually modify the parking around City Hall and get another +7 spaces in that area. The project will also shows how we will now have a dedicated intersection at Harrison and Railroad. All roads will lead to this. This was designed with Wise for. There's a certain truck level. It'll equal the same turning ratio that we're looking for that we will have coming from Carl Brown onto Harrison. The project included with this project in 24 will be running an extension of the sidewalks roughly around the barber shop to Harrison. But if you think about that, that creates a full connection of this area here between the bike trail, the railroad sidewalks that go all the way down to Tim McKay's house, and then ties this in. And you say to yourself, well, how are you gaining +7 when you're not going to have any of that row here? Because all the ones at City Hall no longer need to be angled. They can be pushed farther towards Harrison. Here's our turnway that we get by the dumpsters being consolidated. So it really, really works on that. So there's just all of the different features that we have. The detention for this will be likely underground. I just wanted to point out some of the positives. All 151 spaces will be designated as free parking. If all lighting fixtures, including the project, will be dark sky compliant. I think when Corey was talking about the lighting, we wanted to always lead by example. So this will be sort of one of the city's first look. We're following our own rules. Excuse me. A border, we're not really sure, but there will be a physical border that will stop the headlights bleeding in towards the First Street residence area there. We will also there'll be no change in the traffic orientation along First Street. That was something that they were very clear about way back when we were going to do with a parking garage. I guess just because I've been beating this drum, I'll just keep doing it. New access point from State Route 48 will better disperse traffic into downtown and will be especially beneficial for Claremont and Warren County residents. We talked about how the southern, let's just say the southwest portion of the downtown business district has expanded over the last few years. I think this could lead to even further expansion of the south or more of the eastern portion of the downtown, who will be the city will be selling a building soon that will benefit from this. I've had multiple conversations with Greater Corporate, Greater Ice Cream Corporate. They are a very, very strong proponent of this project because they see it creating more pedestrian traffic down 48, easier into their world. When the turn lane project's done, I think you'll see how it all comes in and how I think the people that feel like they're a little off the beaten path won't be anymore. And then a new walkway will improve pedestrian traffic to the businesses in the eastern portion. Consolidation of dumpsters will improve aesthetics for the area adjacent, all parking adjacent to City Hall. So what we're going to do is the entire area will be repaved and restriped. If we do this right and you're an outsider, you may come in and think it's all just one big parking lot with a train car in the middle of it because it'll all be done at the same time. I will tell you that we'll likely use some of our next year's paving program for that. All external agencies, including archaeological, historic, United States Army Corps of Engineers, and United States Fish and Wildlife have been secured. Any other applications that we need, like EPA or stormwater, we need construction drawings, and they're not finished yet. But we won't have any issues with those. Real quickly, how does it impact the total parking spaces? Right now, total paved. The only reason I'm not trying to act like we don't have gravel, but remember, gravel parking areas are not ADA compliant. They're not desirable. Those were all just areas that had a future use. So right now, total parking spaces that are paved, we have our 67. We gravel non-ADA. We have 35 to 40. It depends on how the first guy parks, or the first person parks. Sorry. And then when this is done, total paved parking with city area realignment will have 229 new parking spaces. So how's it work out price wise? We think we'll be around 1.3. Well, why can't you do a better job? Because the great unknown is the dirt. It's just very difficult. Dirt has a value. It may be the city has a location. We think that will factor into it, but you may also have a subcontractor that needs that dirt. It is fill dirt. So it's just very unknown. But if you calculate that the Linda Cox lot was 685 to 700 and some change, and it's very similar, actually with less landscaping, then you're adding in a sizable amount of money for earth removal. I think that the project can stay within the 1.3. So with that, we've received the 250,000 from the Appalachian region and 900,000 through the capital budget. I want to note that both of these grant agencies have modified the grant agreements with the city. We didn't need council. We just staff did this. They now are funding for a parking lot, not a parking garage. So we're good to go. Both have been given. We've been given extensions on both of them. So there's no pushing. And then lastly, I think we're earmarking $150,000 in next year's downtown TIF money as a bit of a cushion. Why is that? Because that's private investment money in the downtown district that is returned to the city. It's a very good use of those monies. And I did it. Oh, sorry. Shoot, I forgot the slide. Sorry. So project start goals anytime after October 2nd. There's a bat over there that is gone on October 1st. I don't really know a lot about that, but we were requested by the Fish and Wildlife to wait until after October 1st. It's a bat. And then so the survey work is nearing completion, the final project design, and then that will be followed by the construction drawings. Then we will bid document and advertising. We hope in early September, bid opening mid to late September. If all goes well, we're bringing a contract to council at their second meeting in September. We always sign contracts the next day. And then pre-construction meeting in October. We would hope that the project gets moving in October. And then I would say sometime in June of 2024, and I'm finished. How you said go fast.
That was fast.
Sorry.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Mr.
Too fast.
When all this is done, I would propose we consider changing the name of Harrison Street. As Zigzag is already taken, I would propose that we rename it Hopscotch.
Thank you.
That's what came out of that.
Anybody else have any comments? Yes, Mr. Hart.
Obviously, there's some pretty large elevation changes out there. What does that look like in terms of bricks, pavers? We thought about what that looks like, the aesthetic of that's going to be when that hill gets moved and train car there.
So the train car there will be a retaining wall in that area. Ironically, when we first bought the Ross property back in 2019, and I asked Randy Merrill, who's doing this work for us, to do a very overview of feasibility. He called me when he got back to his office. He said, "You won't believe it, but when you're standing on First Street, where you envision the entrance to this being, it is the exact same elevation as where you are on 48. So basically, here's First Street, here's 48, identical elevation. Here's what was a fill placement that will be removed, and the railroad will have a retaining wall up on it, and that will taper down towards the back. So the sidewalk it'll probably be an alternate bid where the sidewalk matches our paver design, which we probably should do that. Otherwise, there will be landscaping, black black style, dark sky compliant street lighting, some green space.
Thinking like along specifically the north side. What would the parking lot be?
The north side is where we'll buffer the Duke Energy substation. That will basically just be green space. We can plant some trees there. They're still determining on whether or not the most cost-effective way is to put the detention down into that basin, or if it's more cost-effective to put the storm drainage underneath, like it is in other locations. So, but yeah, functionality, I think it takes us back to what we were discussing before. We will have 2 extremely improved ingress access points into the city, and potentially modifying the railroad makes a lot more sense. and because you'll be able to exit out. I would say that today Misty led us on a meeting of where we go over 4th of July, and that it took a different turn on what we think next year is on how we could lay out the 4th of July even better, because we would envision the ability to leave the city differently. So just so you know, since Misty keeps pushing away at that 4th of July thing, I really think, I hope that I can stay within the budget. We have 1.1 million 50 sitting. We haven't used any of those funds for any study, any wetland delineation. That's all money, and we've been granted extensions. So I don't. What else to say?
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Peng.
Just a question about First Street. Is there a portion of First Street or all of First Street that gets reworked as part of this with cleaning paving up? And
Paving. But I think there's really a desire to keep it one lane for now.
Right.
And when I say we're scooching out there, we're really only scooching out there with some of the green space we could still someday make it to. So if someday you decide it really needs to be 2-lane, that section, you're simply removing that border, that shrub, that fence, that area. But that increased almost 7 spaces by pushing that in and going. What we found out is 151 seemed to be the sweet spot until we ended up going down that hill. And you would appreciate this more than anybody. Then the cost per space was going exponentially in conjunction with a retaining wall that had to keep being built and all the site work. So 151 was the sweet spot. And part of that was because of the ability to go up towards the rail car. And the works understands that they will now have a fairly steady flow of traffic along their 48 side. So I think 151 is about the best number they're going to end up with.
Anyone else? All right. Well, I appreciate
I went fast.
the presentation. I mean, I certainly was a proponent of the garage, but that just fiscally does not make sense given our current situation, and we're gaining about a net 160 spots here, if I did my math correctly. So to add another for 110 spots, what would be borrowing probably $5+ million just made no sense. So to me, this is going to be, when this is finished, it's going to be a heck of a transformation back here. And practically speaking, 160 spots, that's not nothing. That's going to have a big impact, I think. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the number that we were able to get to with that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything else? All right, Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. So bringing before council amendments to Chapter 732, which is our transient business vendors, mobile vendors code of ordinance. And if you remember, the Planning and Zoning Commission spent a lot of time in 2022 rewriting and taking a different approach toward food trucks on private property. So with that, those regulations really inform the code of ordinances, which more in so doing now deal with special events, things inside the right of way, in that nature. So we took another look at 732, and so those revisions are extensive, in part because the regulations, the new regulations for the food trucks were a complete rework of what we had previously, and so we tried to meld those and mesh those in a manner. And I really take my hat off to Law and Ordinance for the work that they did in that regard. So met several times to look at it. They did a deep dive into that. Finally recommended on June 28th to present the amendments to council for them as recommended for adoption. Just summarizing some of the high points on that. Just some clarification on background investigations to mirror current processes. Giving the ability for an appeal. Providing the city manager with discretion and when needed in the public interest to make waivers and modifications, and enhancing some other time, manner, and place restrictions that really apply, and clarifying where those specific regulations would come into play, and basically taking a similar approach to mobile food vendors as other transient vendors selling things in the street, in the right of way, things like that. Not to be confused with door-to-door solicitation. So with that, we recommend that units a lot. There were a lot of revisions. So staff's recommending that City Council, we're presenting this to you and then recommend the City Council set a public hearing on or before August 29th, 2023. That would give Council around a month to review these, just similar to what we've done in other instances where we've had multiple pages of ordinance to look through. So that's the recommendation this evening.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, so we need a motion to set a public hearing on August 29th, 2023 at or about 7 p.m. to consider the adoption of proposed amendments to Chapter 732.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
I'm just going to touch on a couple items, and Corey was going to touch on council goals. We have two left, two more updates on the 2022 council goals under continue efforts at addressing traffic and parking. I think we talked about the parking lot and the shift there. City Council's awarded the State Route 48 turn lane project at the old former mobile station project. Construction will be underway shortly. That should have a significant impact on city traffic, and applaud City Council for the initiative to acquire that property. Goal of pedestrian and bike lane connectivity within the city. Loveland Miamiville Road Phase 1 is underway. That will, when complete, will tie 3 relatively good-sized subdivisions to 2 schools and into the downtown district. Plus, at the same time, we're getting an alignment on 48. So ultimately, we'll be able to tie in Brandywine, Butterworth Glen, Chimney Ridge into the downtown district. I just mentioned that East Loveland, what Corey brought to you tonight, that project is really just one of 3 multi-phases that will create sidewalks all the way up East Loveland to what should be quite the outdoor area when those 2 projects are done on the former Grail property. The other items that I would report on, that we've wrapped up a road program. We're right at 1.2. This was the first time in a long time that we were able to focus all city road funding on subdivision streets. Typically, we were behind, so we had to do some of our larger roadways, Lebanon and so on and so forth. Under explore ways to stabilize the water fund, we are the WMR fee is in place. Current balance is right in line with what we thought it would be, and we hope soon to be announcing that we will be utilizing that funding for a big water replacement project. Public relation functions. People anxiously await Krista's next written newsletter. That is very popular. We get a lot of great comments on that. She continues to do a wonderful job with that newsletter. Sometimes the good old fashioned way of just mailing stuff to people's houses. I can honestly say, because the Heights grant program had largely gone dormant until she mentioned it in the newsletter. And then it was, lastly, the last one that I had to report on was just developed staffing. We just added a new assistant public works director, Sean Hartness, and we will be swearing in a new police officer at our next meeting. We continue to get quality people. This is the best group in 9 years you've ever had to come to work in this building every day. And I think Chief Gabrielson and Captain Gangware have done a wonderful job up at the police department, getting they're sort of like the Cincinnati Reds. They've got a lot of real young, talented people, and they're guiding them through. So it's really exciting what's going on in that department, and I think Corey will take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. So with regard to the regional support for construction of a new crossing, so the project team has really been working hard on this, and I think we have the right team with Burgess and Neipel in that, and that was evident today. We had a stakeholder meeting with multiple jurisdictions, and a very productive meeting. Mr. Kennedy and I sat in on that, kind of talked about the importance of the project, heard from the different stakeholders, and interestingly, we went through some of the survey results. And so I'll share with council that we got more than 1,700 unique survey results to the public involvement survey that we put out, which is outstanding, of which most of those were, I'll say most, over 90% were from the 45140 zip code. So being as large as that area is, and encompassing the city, Sims Township, Miami Township, parts of Warren County, I thought that was very important, and we got a lot of good suggestions. And I think the surveys gleaned or shed light on some additional travel patterns. We ask questions like where are you coming from, where are you going, and it's sort of driving that process. And we were able to share that with stakeholders. I think it really opened people's eyes today in some of our surrounding communities as to what was the phrase? It was the U. They're driving the U.
Yeah, they're all driving in.
So they're sort of coming from the north, driving through, and then driving back up north again. There's a significant traffic influence in that. So we are seeing that, and that process is continuing. With regard to the bike lanes, hitting on another element, we've put applications into OKI for STP funding to advance really what I'll call the transformative first phase of Loveland Madera Road, which includes improvements from West Loveland to Valley View. It includes a new roundabout there, new 12-foot multi-use path on one side, pedestrian improvements on the other. In addition, the city received word from the Ohio Department of Transportation that the Systemic Safety Grant has been approved for another phase of Loveland Madera Road from basically, if you can think of the city's corporation limits down to around Oasis Turf and Castle Skateland. So that will be a significant pedestrian enhancement as well. And then we're sort of working to bridge the gap between the two of those. So we're hopeful. We've got our fingers crossed with OKI. I think it's a great project, and I know that I'm prepared to go down to ICC and argue for every point on behalf of the city. So I think it'll be a transformative project if we're able to secure funding. With regard to Chestnut, we talked about that with the access. That's critical. Remediation work is ongoing. We've buttoned up really almost all of the remediation work on site. You'll see that there's actually access into the site now through our recently acquired 501 Loveland Madera Road property. It's rough, it's rudimentary, but I believe that we can get a tandem axle dump truck back there if we have to get rid of some dirt. So that will be positive, and they are now in the monitoring phase. So that has also been positive. It appears that the groundwater testing, the first round of results, we're keeping our fingers crossed. We want to make sure that we got all the contaminants. So that is very good. And as we are also studying the best method to achieve sanitary sewer, we know natural gas is in the vicinity. Obviously, there'll be an access road in the site at some point. Achieve sanitary sewer, the best way to do that, and to provide a stormwater outlet, which those studies are underway now. So all of that is positive, and we hopefully will be able to bring the site. I really don't see us being able to market the site until we are at that environmental clearance stage. So that work is ongoing. Regarding the fire station, I think we're close. We're working through some final elements on some detention and stormwater. I hope to have 90% plans in the next couple of weeks or so. I know Chief Huber's eagerly awaiting that. I know Mr. Kennedy and I have been working on that, kind of trying to button up that site. I'm really excited about that project. It's not often you get to build a full-size modern fire station that looks like it's 100 years old and that fits into a downtown context. So really excited to be a part of that project.
And then just to add on to that, we went ahead today and we made the commitment. We'll be going through the USDA process for the financing. I had to do some double checking and run the calculator a little bit, but it's a detailed process. But the interest rate in comparison to the market rate will be a significant savings on a project of this size. So we are made the decision today that we're going to go all in with the USDA for the funding for this project. Funding should be available around November. They'll be bringing items to you as we go through, but originally they didn't think we qualified, and based on the location in Claremont, they've decided we are eligible, and we're pretty excited about the savings this will represent to the city over the course of the that loan.
All right. Anything else? Anybody have any comments, questions, Mr. Hart?
So, did I hear you right that all the actual trash is out of the Chestnut property? You've already
They've hauled all of the contaminated soils and almost all of the debris. We're like, so a little couple logs here and there, but it's all out. It's all, we've got waste manifests. I've got stacks of waste manifests thicker than this packet. Now you'll go back there, you'll see broken glass and things. I mean, you're not going to get 100% of the glass and all that. But again, any construction site is going to have some of that, and that'll get worked over with the grade and all that, but there's no contaminants. And the lead soil removal came back. Interestingly, we only had one area that fell below residential, that fell above residential contaminant standards, and it's all below commercial contaminant standards. So it's all fully, that's great. And then the groundwater monitoring was very positive. I think we saw a very small concentration of one of the I don't know the technical term for them, but one of the chemicals that we're testing for, but it is going down significantly. So that has been very positive. And they injected almost 100,000 gallons of that zero emulsified zero valent iron into the ground, and it's basically oxidizing the chemicals that were in the plume. So that's positive.
That's awesome.
Anyone else? Any comments, questions? All right. Thank you both. A lot of good things happening. Mr. Medler.
Thank you, Mayor. For you this evening is the second quarter financial report for 2023 that was discussed at last week's Finance Commission meeting. The 23 budget includes a number of projects that are underway, as just discussed, the groundwater remediation and the yearly road rehabilitation projects. Those are leading the way. For $1 million has been spent so far to improve the conditions of roads that people of Loveland drive on every day. Investment revenue remains strong. The first half of 23 has brought in $188,000 more than the first half of 2022, with this money going to special projects fund to support capital improvements in the city. In June 2022, the Star Ohio interest rate, where we have most of our investment, was 1.15%. And at the time, we thought that was really great, since the year before it was 0.08. Now we're at 5.26%. So things remain strong. Talked with our Raymond James investment manager today. He says they keep talking about a possible recession coming, but it still hasn't come. So we're in good shape now. We're keeping our eyes on the future, but we're feeling pretty good. Income tax receipts continue to be strong. For years, the top of the mountain looked like it was $5 million. That was the number that we were looking for a long time. Now we're projected to break $6 million for the second year in a row. It is also possible that we might flirt with the number that starts with a 7 this year, but we'll see how it goes. Property taxes to the general fund and the fire levy funds remain strong, and the water main replacement fee, which Mr. Kennedy mentioned earlier, looks to be on track to what we estimated. Overall, expenses are up, due mainly to the projects that we had mentioned. But the city has also received tremendous amounts of grant money, including approximately $2.5 million for groundwater remediation and over $300,000 from community development block grants for 501 Loveland Madeira. So that's kind of the high level points. If you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Blair is our Finance Commission representative. You have any comments?
All the directions are good. There are, at every commission meeting, detailed discussions of various directions. Within directions, it gets down to the literal quantum level of analysis at times, and the city's finances are in excellent shape and in excellent hands.
Thank you very much. All right, so I think we need a motion to accept the second quarter quarterly update. Correct?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman? Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
And carry 6-0.
Did you have anything, Mr. Medler, to add on the income tax update?
Just as mentioned, income tax is continuing to be strong. All three of our categories, which is withholdings, individuals, and businesses, are up. Leading the way was the individual amounts. So we're continuing to keep an eye on that, but in very good shape.
All right, thank you. All right, there are various meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments on those? All right, I have upcoming events to announce. Tuesday, August 1st, the Loveland Police Department, Hamilton Township Police Department, and Hamilton Township Fire and Rescue will join together for the 40th National Night Out, a nationwide campaign that promotes police community partnerships. There will be free activities from 6 to 9 at Oders Lake, which is 1369 East US Highway 22 and 3 at Hamilton Township. On Saturday, August 5th, Blind Faith Duo will perform in our new beautiful gazebo at Nisbet Park from 1 to 3 as part of the city's Trailside Tunes mini concert series. On Saturday, August 12th, the city will host a movie in the park, Disney's Encanto. Is that correct? The event will be held in Phillips Park, and it is free. Pre-show activities begin at 7 p.m. and the movie begins at sundown. On Sunday, August 13th, the city's Concert in the Park series continues with Rooster Ridge at Nisbet Park and will begin at 6. This past Sunday, I don't know if any of you were at the concert, but it was Tyler Christopher, the ultimate Elvis show. It was, I would estimate 1,000 people were there. It was crazy. And very well attended, very well behaved crowd, and it was fun. I thought it was very fun for everyone that was there. So that was a good choice, Mrs. Clark. That was awesome. August city council meetings have been rescheduled as a result of the special election. City council meetings in August will be held on August 15th and August 29th at 7 p.m. Anybody have anything else? Yes, Mr. Ori.
August 15th, council meeting, I will be absent.
Thank you. Mr. Bateman.
I just wanted to mention, you might remember a couple of meetings ago, the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District came and invited us to leadership float down the Little Miami River. So I grabbed
Did you
that. I did. I floated. Yeah. And it was a really great experience. There was a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds from Warren County, both in municipal leadership roles, but also in park and fish and wildlife. And I guess just as you know, as Mr. Medler reports about the financial health, Mr. Beckoning, you know, I think what I took away from that was the tremendous amount of work that's gone in the last 40 years with Little Miami River and how healthy it is for as an ecosystem. They had people with they were electrofishing and capturing species and showing us what was just in a small little backwater area of the Little Miami River. So, you know, again, we all know how lucky we are about that. But of course, it doesn't happen without cooperation from so many different agencies and institutions. And so that spirit was really on display at that event. And I encourage, if we get the chance to do it again, I'll certainly do it. And also with the fact that we are in 3 different counties, I think trying to be a link in these environmental issues with our with parties in Claremont and Hamilton as well, just to try to link that stewardship of the Little Miami River. And we do this, and everyone knows this. I mean, again, talking with people from 40 miles north of here, they all live and breathe the same community feeling that we do, being sister communities along the Little Miami River. So I just was very inspired by the displays they had. There was a lot of amazing works of civil engineering that they showed about water erosion prevention methods. But again, it was a Friday well spent, and I did float, and I didn't fall in. There were a couple of accidents, so
I'm glad
water was running a little swift after all the rain we had in the last couple of weeks, so it made it a little bit more adventurous. But thank you.
All right, great. Anyone else?
Election day is on the 8th. Democracy's on the ballot. Vote like it counts, because it does.
All right, we have an executive session. Can we have a motion? Someone, please.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we move to executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G3 to confer with legal counsel regarding imminent litigation.
For a second,
Second.
call the roll.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey, Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.